The crowd was deafening, a swirling ocean of alien faces under the glaring lights of the grand arena. Banners fluttered, drums pounded, and at the heart of it all, two figures stood alone. On one side, Commander Siraven of the Zeralith Armada, legendary across 5-star systems. Her bioarmor gleamed like molten silver, her stance a masterpiece of lethal precision. She had crushed every opponent who dared face her, warriors, assassins, even war machines. Her victory was a certainty written into the stars themselves. On the other side, a human. Cale Arden looked absurdly small beside her, wearing nothing but light combat leathers, his hands spinning an ancient primitive weapon, Nunchucks, with an easy, almost lazy grace. No shields, no armor. No plasma cannons. The crowd fell into stunned silence at the sight. And then from Siraven came a laugh, sharp, cruel, and echoing through the arena like the crack of a whip. "This is the best your species has to offer?" she called out, amplifying. Her voice so every spectator could hear. "You bring a child's toy into my domain?" Kyle didn't react with anger. He smiled, a slow, crooked smile that made something uneasy shift in the hearts of those watching. "Toys can be dangerous," he said lightly, twirling the nunchucks faster until they were a silver blur. "Depends who's holding them," Siraven sneered. Her armor shifted and hissed as battle protocols activated, targeting systems locking onto. Every inch of Cale's exposed body, a low, resonant horn boomed across the arena. The match had begun. Siraven surged forward, moving faster than a thunderbolt, her armored gauntlet crashing down toward Cale's skull with the force to shatter bone and stone behind it. But Cale was already gone. In a single, fluid motion, he ducked, spun sideways, and let the nunchucks snap out like a whip. There was a metallic crack, loud enough to make even the most hardened Zeralith warriors flinch. Commander Siraven stumbled backward, stunned. Her forearm gauntlet, crafted from neutron-forged alloy, hung in two useless pieces from her wrist. Murmur rippled through the stadium like the first tremor of an earthquake. "Impossible," someone whispered. Kyle straightened, letting the nunchucks rest lazily on his shoulders. His brown hair ruffled slightly in the hot arena air. He winked at Siraven with maddening confidence. "Round 1 to the child's toy," he said. Siraven's heart pounded, and not just from fury. A slow, reluctant admiration flickered in her chest, along with something far more dangerous. Curiosity. No opponent had ever survived her first strike, let alone humiliated her. This human was not what she had expected. And deep down, a part of her she barely recognized. Something raw, primal, and hungry whispered, "Fight him, test him, learn him, and perhaps something even more forbidden. Claim him." With a snarl that was half battle cry, half something else entirely, Siraven charged again, and this time she would not hold back. Across the arena, Kyle grinned wider, spinning his battered nunchucks like twin stars. He had traveled light years to reach this moment, to prove humanity's place among the stars. But as he met Siraven's blazing gaze, another unexpected thought struck him. "Maybe I'm not just here to fight. Maybe I'm here to find something far more dangerous, something like love." Siraven's second charge was a blur of killing intent. Her boots crushed the arena sand beneath her with every stride. Twin plasma daggers hissed out from hidden compartments in her wrists, their blades singing with deadly energy. Kyle didn't wait for her to reach him. He moved. Not with the stiff, mechanical predictability of most fighters Siraven had faced, but with a wild, fluid grace. Like water poured into battle, adapting, flowing, impossible to pin down. Her first swipe aimed for his throat. Cale ducked, feeling the heat of the plasma just skim his hair. His nunchuck snapped outward, striking the inside of her elbow joint. The perfect weak point. A flash of sparks exploded as her servo motors shorted. The crowd gasped. A few even rose to their feet. He reads my moves, Siraven realized, teeth clenched. She pivoted, striking with her other blade, feinting left, driving right, but Kale was already twisting under her guard. One nunchuck whirled around her ankle like a constrictor, yanking her off balance for a fraction of a second. A fraction was all he needed. Kale's boot planted against her armored midsection, pushing off to flip backward and land lightly on the balls of his feet. The force sent her skidding back, armor groaning under the unexpected torque, and for a second, only a second, Siraven smiled. An honest smile. A thrilled smile. Finally, she thought, a battle worth fighting. Her blood sang with it. The next exchanges came faster, almost too fast for the audience to follow. Kale darted in, striking at her joints, her exposed servo lines, dancing along the razor-thin line between death and domination. Siraven adapted with brutal efficiency, adjusting her movements, reading his rhythm, countering with savage precision. Strike, dodge, parry, spin, strike. It was no longer just a fight. It was a conversation, a courtship, a challenge issued not in words, but in sweat, breath, and instinct. Siraven found herself enjoying it far more than she should. Her people, the Zeralith, valued strength above all, but love. Love was weakness. Yet when Kale grinned at her, ducking under her latest slash and tapping her helmet with his nunchucks like a mischievous boy flicking a girl's braid, a hot, unfamiliar rush shot through her. Frustration, admiration, something. Far more dangerous? Focus! She snapped at herself. She activated her armor's second phase, energy shields blossoming around her limbs, a glowing cocoon of defense. It drained more power, but it would end this foolishness, or so she thought. Kyle tilted his head, studying her shield with interest. Then he flipped his nunchucks once, twice, and charged. To the crowd's astonishment, Kyle didn't avoid the shield. He dived into it, letting the energy whip around him. His nunchucks spun like twin storm cores, creating a gyroscopic field that bent the energy back toward its emitter. Siraven barely had time to widen her eyes before her own shield imploded inward with a concussive thump, staggering her backward. Kyle landed lightly at her feet. He tapped one nunchuck against her chest plate, right over her heart. "Point to me," he murmured, his voice low, private, meant for her alone. The crowd exploded into cheers, but Siraven barely heard them. She looked at him, really looked at him, a human, a primitive species. Yet, he had seen through her defenses. He had touched her heart, literally and figuratively, on the battlefield she had ruled uncontested for years. Her heart thundered against the inside of her chest plate. Kale's eyes softened, slightly as he held her gaze, and for a single breathless moment, there was no war, no arena, no audience. Only the raw, electric pull between two warriors who had seen each other's strength and hungered for more. "You're dangerous, Kale Arden," she said, her voice rough. Kale's grin widened. "You have no idea, Commander." Then, before the moment could deepen into something irretrievable, Siraven surged forward with a roar, and Kale met her, nunchucks flashing under the twin suns. The dance was far from over, and neither of them wanted it to end. The clash of their bodies sent shockwaves across the arena, stirring the dust into swirling golden storms. This time, Siraven fought without holding back. Kyle could feel it in every strike, the coiled strength of a predator, unleashed. Her plasma, blades were a blur, slashing and stabbing with a precision honed over 100 battlefields. And Kale, he was alive like he had never been before. Every nerve sang, every heartbeat matched the rhythm of her assault. And somewhere deep inside he realized, I'm not fighting to win anymore. I'm fighting to be worthy. The nunchucks spun faster than the eye could follow, deflecting lethal strikes, redirecting her momentum, forcing her to adapt again and again. Every time she thought she had him cornered, Kyle slipped away, grinning, breathing hard, his blue eyes dancing with mischief and defiance. The battle was a firestorm, but it was also a dance. and neither wanted it to end. Suddenly, alarms blared across the arena. Both fighters froze, instincts flaring. From the arena's walls, massive iron gates groaned open, and something emerged. Something not part of the plan. Arena sentinels. 8 of them. Hulking automatons 3 times Kale's height, built for one purpose only: to eliminate anything deemed a threat. Their eyes glowed blood red. Their weapons, plasma maces and ion blasters, powered up with a chilling hum. "What is this?" Kyle shouted, stepping instinctively closer to Siraven's side. Siraven's face hardened. She tapped the side of her helmet, accessing the arena's network, and found only chaos. A hack, a sabotage. "Someone wants us dead," she growled. The sentinels charged, their footsteps hammering the ground. Without thinking, Kale shifted stance, ready to fight, but a silver-armored hand grabbed his wrist. Siraven yanked him close, her voice low and fierce. "We fight together now, human, understand?" Kale's chest thudded at her nearness, the fierce fire in her eyes. He nodded once, sharply. Back to back, they faced the incoming machines. "Cover my left," she barked. "Only if you promise not to mock my toys anymore," Kyle quipped, spinning his nunchucks. Siraven actually laughed, short and sharp, then lunged forward, slicing through the first sentinel's knee joint with brutal efficiency. Sparks exploded. Kyle danced around another, his nunchucks wrapping around a blaster arm. With a yank, he spun upward and smashed the weapon into the sentinel's own head, caving in its armor. 2 down, 6 to go. But they were relentless. 1. Sentinel swung a mace toward Siraven's head. She ducked, but not fast enough. The shockwave blasted her off her feet, slamming her into the arena wall with a crash. Kyle's heart stopped. "Siraven!" No thinking, no hesitation. Kyle sprinted forward, dodging another sentinel's grab, sliding under its massive legs. His nunchucks snapped out, targeting the weak points Siraven had exposed earlier in their fight. Servo lines, joint connections, hydraulic valves. He struck with surgical precision. 2 more sentinels dropped, twitching. Kale reached Siraven just as she was, struggling to rise, blood trickling down the side of her face where her helmet had cracked. He offered a hand. She stared at it for half a second, pride warring with practicality, then took it. Their fingers locked, tight, unbreakable. And in that moment, under the twin suns, surrounded by smoke and enemies, something passed between them that had nothing to do with battle, something raw, something real. "On your feet, Commander," Kale said, voice rough with concern. "I'm not done showing off yet." Siraven bared her teeth in a fierce, brilliant grin. "Then don't die yet, human," she snapped. Together, they turned and faced the last wave of sentinels. Their movements were seamless now, synchronized, as if they'd trained together for years. Kyle lured them in with flashy, chaotic spins, distracting, taunting, while Siraven struck with lethal precision, finishing them off. It was messy. It was brutal. But it was also beautiful. When the last sentinel crashed into the dust, silence reigned once more. Only the ragged sound of their breathing filled the arena. The crowd, those who hadn't fled, stood frozen in stunned awe. Kyle straightened, panting, bruised, 1,000 tiny cuts bleeding under his clothes. Siraven stood beside him, battered but unbroken, a warrior in every sense. For a long, electric moment, they just stared at each other. And Kale knew. He hadn't just survived the fight. He had earned her respect. Maybe even more. "You're dangerous." "Kale Arden," Siraven repeated, but this time softer, almost wondering. Kale grinned, that maddening, crooked smile. "Still think my nunchucks are toys?" Siraven's laugh, raw, real, was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. Above them, the twin suns dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the broken arena. But the real battle, the battle for hearts, for survival, for the future, was only just beginning. The medbay smelled of antiseptic and scorched metal. Kyle winced as the dermal patch sealed a gash on his shoulder. Across the room, Siraven sat silently, a physician fussing over her cracked armor and bruised ribs. The battle was over, but the war behind it had only just begun. Kale's mind raced. Someone had hacked the arena sentinels, someone powerful enough to override Imperial protocols, someone who wanted both him and Siraven dead, and whoever it was, they weren't finished. "You should leave," Siraven said suddenly, her voice low but firm. Kyle looked up sharply. "You're serious?" She didn't meet his eyes. She stared at the window instead, where the twin moons were rising over the city. "This isn't your war, human. You won the duel. You survived the ambush. You've proven yourself. Now go home before they try again." Kyle laughed, but it came out rough, bitter. "That's not how it works, Commander. You dragged me into your arena, remember? You mocked me. You challenged me." He rose, crossing the room toward her. "And somewhere between trying to kill me and saving my life, you made it my war too." Finally, Siraven met his gaze, and for the first time, there was no armor in her eyes, only fear, not fear of the enemy, fear of what she was feeling. Kale stepped closer until he could feel the heat of her body through the torn plates of her armor. "Siraven," he said, softer now, almost wondering. He reached out, and to his surprise, she didn't pull away. Instead, she reached for him too. Their hands met, rough and calloused, warriors' hands, hands that had dealt pain and death. And yet, the touch was so achingly gentle it almost broke him. Siraven swallowed hard. "If you stay, you'll die," she whispered. Kale smiled, a real smile, not a cocky grin. "Then I'll die fighting at your side. Could be worse ways to go." For a long moment, the world seemed to freeze. The moons bathed them in silver light. The medbay's hum faded to nothing. There was only Kyle and Siraven, two broken soldiers standing on the edge of something terrifying and beautiful. Siraven moved first. Her hand slid up his chest, over the jagged tear in his shirt, to the side of his neck. She pulled him down and kissed him. It wasn't soft, it wasn't sweet, it was fierce, desperate, filled with every unsaid word, every stolen glance, every heartbeat they'd ignored until now. Kyle kissed her back just as fiercely, his arms wrapping around her waist, lifting her slightly off the ground. Her fingers tangled in his hair, tugging hard, as if daring him to fight her for dominance, and he did. For a few stolen seconds there was no empire, no war, no betrayal, only the fire between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing. Hard, eyes wide. "Well," Kale rasped, voice wrecked with emotion. "Didn't expect that after getting my ribs cracked." Siraven smirked, a real, slow smirk that was dangerously close to a smile. "You fight well. You kiss better." Kale chuckled, and then stiffened. The medbay door hissed open. Commander Arvak strode in, flanked by black-armored guards. His face was grim, human. "Commander," he barked, "by order of the High Tribunal, you are both under arrest for treason." Siraven spun toward him, rage flashing in her eyes. "What?" Kyle stepped in front of her instinctively, fists clenching. "On what grounds?" he demanded. Arvak sneered. "Conspiracy with off-world insurgents, sabotage of the arena systems, unauthorized bonding with a foreign combatant." He tossed a data chip at their feet. The hologram flickered to life. Kyle's stomach dropped. Images, doctored, twisted, showed him and Siraven in intimate conversation, transmitting data to supposed rebels, hacking Sentinel systems. Even the kiss portrayed as treasonous collusion. "You set us up," Kale breathed. Arvak smiled, a thin, poisonous smile. "Of course I did. The Empire doesn't need rogue heroes. It needs obedience." The guards raised their plasma rifles. "Now," Arvak said. You will surrender, or die here, like the traitors you are. Kyle glanced at Siraven. She was already moving, hand brushing her belt, finding the hidden knife. Kyle flexed his fingers, feeling the weight of the nunchucks still strapped to his thigh, side by side again. Just like in the arena. Only this time, it wasn't for glory. It was for their lives. Kyle grinned. Round 2? He asked. Siraven's eyes gleamed. Always. They moved as one. The first shot scorched the wall where Kale's head had been. He dropped low, spinning his nunchucks up with a crack that shattered the nearest guard's visor. Beside him, Siraven blurred into motion, knife flashing, armor shards flying. The medbay became a storm of plasma and blood. Kyle fought like a man possessed, not because he was human, not because he had something to prove, but because Siraven fought beside him. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for someone. The guards fell one by one, but Arvak was no fool. He retreated, slamming the lockdown alarm. Steel barriers crashed down across exits. Kyle and Siraven were trapped. Not good, Kyle muttered, wiping blood from his cheek. Correction, Siraven said grimly. Very not good. The room shook. Outside, the thud of heavy boots echoed. More guards incoming, Kyle cursed. Ideas. Siraven's eyes flicked to the ventilation shafts. Small, narrow, big enough for one person. Kyle caught her glance and immediately shook his head. No way. If one of us stays behind, we both die. Not if you go, she said fiercely. Not if you make it to the council. Expose Arvak. The tribunal won't ignore hard proof. And leave you? Kale snarled. After everything? Siraven grabbed his face between her hands, fierce and tender. You carry our fight forward, Kale. You save us both. Before he could argue, she kissed him again, brief, burning, and shoved him toward the shaft. Go. For a moment, Kyle hesitated. Every instinct screamed to stay, but Siraven's faith gave him strength. He nodded once. Don't die, he whispered. I won't, she lied, with a smirk. Kyle squeezed through the shaft just as the doors blasted open and a wave of soldiers flooded in. He didn't look back. Hours later, Kyle burst into the Grand Tribunal Hall, bloody, exhausted, data chip in hand. At first, the senators rose in outrage, an armed human in their sacred chambers. Then the holograms flickered to life, proof of Arvak's betrayal. The room exploded into chaos. By nightfall, Arvak was stripped of command, arrested, and publicly denounced. But Kyle didn't celebrate, because Siraven hadn't come back. 3 days later, standing in the ruins of the arena where they first met, Kyle wondered if he'd ever see her again. Maybe she was just another ghost, he thought bitterly. Another warrior who chose duty over dreams. He turned to leave and stopped. Across the sands, limping but alive, a figure moved toward him, silver armor battered, black hair whipping in. The wind, Siraven, Kale's heart stopped. She was real. She was here. He ran. She ran. They met in the center of the arena, colliding in a breathless, brutal hug. You survived, he rasped into her hair. She laughed, a sound he'd never heard before. Wild and beautiful. You made sure of it, human. They pulled back slightly, forehead to forehead, bruised and battered and absolutely unbroken. So, Kyle said, grinning. What now, Commander? Siraven smirked. Now, we build a new empire. Together. She tilted her head. If you're still willing to fight at my side. Kyle kissed her, slow, sure. Always, he whispered. And under the shattered moons of a dying empire, 2 warriors, one human, one alien, chose each other. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, but because it was worth it. The end enjoyed the story, if you want to. See more epic sci-fi romances where humans break all the rules and alien hearts. Let me know. Drop a yes and tell me, should Kale and Siraven get their own full novel? Should we explore what their new empire looks like? More battles, more romance. I'll be ready to create next chapters if you want. Would you also like a bonus short epilogue where Kale proposes to Siraven in the middle of a battlefield? Optional but super romantic. Just type epilogue if yes.